Hi everyone, it's been a while, but I'm finally back with another video that I'll be breaking down one of my recent songs. And so this time I've gone with my remix for the new Calvin Harris and Sam Smith collaboration called Desire. And I've made this into an uplifting trance track. I was quite inspired by the remixes that have come out on his previous release, Miracle. And so this is my take on it. And I think I want to start first probably with the melody, because that was the first thing that I tried to do. So let me just pull up the melody real quick. So as you can hear, it's quite a typical uplifting trance melody with the arpeggio and then the movement on the top line. So that was the first step, and then I went to listen to the original, and then I recreated some of the sounds, such as this one, I think. So you will be able to hear this sound in the original, as well as this intro harp sound. So those three elements combined are pretty much the main MIDI of this song. There's obviously the chords, which is also the pads. There's choir, and then I've got some top piano as an ambience, and then as you can actually see, it's quite a simple track. I made it in quite a short time. I want to get it out as quickly as possible, and there's only less than 50 tracks, and I think I'll just walk through this section of the song. So in the extended version, so the main version that is played when it comes to DJing, it starts with this kick and bass, and as you can hear, the bass is filtering in. There's a couple of percussions here. Just show that. Those were actually cut from a loop that I use further into the track. And then the kick is a trance kick that I put into the sampler, the Logic sampler. And then there's also a top kick. Just gives that transient that cuts through the mix a little bit better. And then for the bass, there's three sounds. And then as you can see here, all from Vital. This is sub bass, and then we've got two kind of more mid bass sounds, like a saw type of sound, and then another one more crunch. And then moving on to the next section, there's a little fill here. So the percussions are coming in. So as the bass line is now the cutoff is at 100%. And then there's a top piano for the atmosphere, and then the arp that I was showing you before. And then there's obviously some sounds like downlifters, crashes. And another thing that I made is the vocal. I actually cut it out and then put some reverb on it, as well as some delay, and then I made this like vocal loop that goes underneath all the other elements, just kind of give it that the original feel of the track. After this section, there's another fill, and then the main vocal comes in. And at this moment, the bass actually goes away again. So as you can see here, the cutoff actually goes to 0%, and then it comes back up. And this is a trick that I use quite often when I have a strong bass line playing with the vocals, and it just gives a bit more room for the vocal to breathe and for that to be the standout element.
Stay with me forever.
And obviously drums are coming in and out. bass line once again, filtering. And there's this short instrumental section that I've added. It's basically that vocal loop, the drums, the bass line, and then the leads are slowly filtering in. So they're quite low in volume at the moment. And once the vocal comes in again, all the elements kind of drops a little bit, but then I also have this choir sound. It's I think it's from Logic, yeah. And then to make that gate, I use this plugin. It's a trance gate from Kilohertz, I think. So these fills that you hear quite often is made with the snare. It's a really simple pattern, but it becomes really effective when you kind of pull all the other elements out. And so to help make this transition smoother, I actually pulled out the kick, or the kick 4 bars before, just give that room and kind of signaling to the audience that, okay, something's going to happen in this next section. I think it's also maybe a good idea to show you the percussions that I've got in the track. Let me just play you this part. So obviously got the kick, got the snare, some open hi-hats, offbeat hi-hat, a bit more layers, and then a faster hi-hat. Then we've got some shakers, and then I think these two, although they're quite low in volume, but I think they add a lot of drive and just that character to the song. Something I think a lot of typical percussions you might find in some of the classic trance tracks as well. And then moving on to the break. Here, the pads and the pianos comes in. This one is from a disc of keys. Here, just put some reverb on there. Not too much, just enough to kind of fill that space a little bit more better. And then also there's this one note that is actually like a string type of sound. This is made with Vital here. It's pretty simple sound. And then you are my desire, and just the thought of you was keeping me awake. I actually kept the break quite simple in this one, so it's basically just the pads and then the top melody that I was talking about that I took from the original, and then there's a respace just to fill up that low end in this section. And then there's this big clap sound with quite a lot of reverb on it, yeah, and then some delay as well, just to give that big space in the break. And then in this section, the leads actually start to filter in, and then they are playing as the main sound. I do have a little bit of a low cut here, and then I've added the respace to continue. I've made that continue into this section. And then another thing to note is this the JP8000, this pad. It's really quiet at the beginning of the break, and then I've automated the gain so that it increases in volume to give that a little bit of a euphoric feeling when the big payoff comes. So this section right here. And then here I actually looped the melody. And then I've broken the loop on the last 2 bars just to give it that continuity when it drops into the main one. And then the kick pattern here, really simple build up, using the kick and snare as the main sound. The kick actually, I think, is filtered away just to kind of give it that difference in the low end, so when the drop hits, it actually has a lot more impact. So as you can see here, the gain is down by around 4 dB. And then also, this is another trick that I like to use, is to gain automate the master channel, so that there's a bit of a difference in volume between the build up and the drop, so that the drop actually, there's a lot more impact to it. And I'll play the drop here. So again, quite simple to lead now, playing with literally, like, I think all of its filter kind of all opened up. Just take a look at the EQ a little bit, so remove the low end, remove from some of the super high ends, and then some adjustments in this section to get rid of that muddy sound a little bit, and then boosting the high end, just give it that kind of sparkle. And then there's quite a lot of processing on here. There's a compressor delay, OTT, just a tiny bit, 18%, and then there's a saturation knob, another plugin that I use quite often from Softube, and then obviously there's the sidechain and the gain, and then I send this to a reverb channel. Take a look at the individual sounds here. There's not too many layers, but again, all of them are from Vital. Maybe I'll just play them for you individually. A bit wider here. Then there's the mono sound, and then the same one, but the mono is turned off, just to give that a bit more strength, I think, and also just a little bit of safety if a certain sound system is in mono. And then here again, the vocal loop comes in, give it a bit more drive, and then this section, the full vocals come in with all the percussion playing. And in this last section, we've got the piano melody playing. So I think it's quite important that you kind of add or remove certain elements to keep the drop interesting. So this happens every 8 bar for me. And after that, there's another 8 bars, kind of like a bridge section, or like an outro section, where I put that arc playing before this outro. So this is pretty much similar to the intro that I've got. And it's also, I think, interesting to note that the ARP is actually never playing the drop. I think this is a decision I made just because if there's an ARP playing, it just gets a bit too messy, and you really want the audience to hear, like the lead, for instance, only the lead, the bass, and then the drums are the most important sound. So this just clashes too much. And also, I haven't shown you the bass yet, so it's quite a simple kind of trance bass line. So it's a rolling bass line. I actually tried putting some notes an octave up, but I think that was too much, and it just didn't really fit well in the mix. So that's pretty much the track. Again, like I said before, it's quite a simple one. I made it in quite a short amount of time. And then I think I'll just also show you the radio edit. So sometimes it's easier to start with the extended, then cut it to make the radio edit, or sometimes for some genres it might be easier to make the radio edit before the actual extended mix, and then you can add 16 bars intro and outro. So to start with the vocals playing right away. I've got rid of that instrumental section, and then the break is pretty much the same in the drop, and then we've got rid of this outro here. Maybe I'll just talk about the mastering actually. So I've got the gain here for that gain automation trick, and then a channel EQ for the very high and very low frequencies. I've actually used this match EQ function Logic to A and B with this track. It's the Sandwick remix of Coming Home by Dash Berlin. I thought this had a similar sound profile, or at least the sound that I wanted my track to sound like, so I took that as a reference. And then finally, to top it off, is the Ozone 9 Elements, just for that limiting, and actually yeah, just for the limiting. And then I always use span to check the frequencies. So as you can see here, there's a bit of a drop in this area, so that's kind of the frequencies that can get muddy quite quickly. So I think it's important to have a look at the frequency spectrum and also compare to those tracks that I think you look up to, and try to match the profile. That's pretty much it for this track. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't yet listened to the track, I'll link it down in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, guys.
Before you leave.